should see a little pop-up at the top of your screen that says this meeting is now being recorded. This is the September 1st, 2021 Southside Green Zone Council meeting. And I will go ahead, stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Baba and Eduardo.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Eduardo Barrera, and I am acting as the Real Estate Development Manager for Neighborhood Development Center.
Yeah, and I am Earlsworth Baba Liteng. I'm better known as Baba. And I just transitioned from MGM as the director into community engagement director for NDC, working across the state. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. But I still support the market in many ways.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us to come and give you a brief update of our Chicago and Lake site. As you recall, last May, we were able to purchase the site and close. And that was obviously with the purpose of continuing the work that NDC has in its mission, which is to provide hopefully affordable long-term commercial space for entrepreneurs, minority entrepreneurs. With that in mind, we are beginning the process of redeveloping the site and figure out what are we going to do. As my previous comment, our focus is to hopefully bring some commercial space along with housing, office space. I don't know what's going to be community space and other options that might be available as we begin the engagement with the community and all the stakeholders around the site. And so that includes neighborhood organizations, South Midtown, Phillips, West Phillips, PPNA, and others that have the presence right there on the site. And we are very eager to listen and seek input into what the site should be or can look like in terms of the development. What is the end product that we want to see in that very prominent intersection? It's in both ways, east-west, as well as south, north, south. It's a gateway into the community, and so we want to reflect the importance of the site, obviously, and as well as bring the community and all the stakeholders around so that we can put together the best plan possible for that site, whatever that might be. And with the focus, again, with our mission to continue providing affordable commercial space in some fashion. So that's what we are. Now, in terms of the process, it's a little bit early right now in the process of the redevelopment. We are beginning to put together some plan to continue the community engagement. They already started in some degree with presentations like this to a couple of different organizations, local neighborhood organizations, and as well to individuals who are seeking or are asking about what is going to be. So that's the process that we are going right now. And hopefully pretty soon we're going to embark in a larger and greater community engagement that with more intensity, with more focus on bringing people in to share their opinions, needs, wants, visions for the site. And you probably heard about the process that the McKnight Foundation is rolling in regards to community engagement regarding 4 particular nodes along the corridor: Lake and Nicollet, Chicago and Lake, Minnehaha and 27, I believe. And I can't remember the other one. Cedar, if I'm correct. Bill, do you remember that?
Bloomington and Lake.
Bloomington and Lake.
Bloomington Lake. There we go. So that is aside for what we are going to do as an organization. So, but my Knight Foundation took this model to engage, do some community engagement along the corridor for those 4 knots, which, I think it's important to do, definitely. But we are also parallel, we are running our own community engagement, if you will, engaging more directly with those stakeholders. So that's what we are at this point. We are talking also in regards of some potential opportunities that surround the site. One thing is that we own that particular site, but is there a vision for a greater redevelopment, including some other space that might be, we might have the opportunity as a community to be able to redevelop in a greater sense. There's a lot of quite a few properties across the street, as you know, on the Chicago Avenue West block that are also where some of them were destroyed by fire, and others need to be turned down because there's just not anything there that can be rebuilt. So we are looking at all that whole holistic, area, and see what is the best for NDC to begin planning and envisioning, and hopefully get to a design charrette and architectural renderings of what could be in there. So that's the phase that we are right now. Now, along with that, we are activating the site. I don't know if you heard, but the Lake Street Council launched an initiative to grant some funds for property owners of vacant lots, to activate them, to make them useful while the pre-development phase is moving along. Rather than having a empty lot with a chain link fence and nothing happening there, we are actively seeking and offering and putting the space available for organizations, individuals, artists, and whatnot, to be able to access the space and have their events at this site. We already have one this past week that was very successful. Probably you heard of the Black State Fair event, which took place from last Sunday to this past Sunday. So it's a week of full activity at the site. I think I heard that I look at the list, and there was about 71 vendors in the site offering products, services, and food to the community. So it was an event that it was very successful, well organized, and culminated this Sunday, basically, was the last activities that took place there. We are still waiting to hear from the main organizer about how many people turned to the event during the week. How was the success of that? All the vendors, Bob and I actually were on the site talking with a lot of entrepreneurs, and basically offering NDC's services and programs available to them. And not surprisingly, many of them were eager to engage with NDC and seek more help, more assistance, if you will. So that was a very successful event that took place there. Lake Street Council was able to kindly enough through this Activating the Space initiative grant about $12,000 for us to beautify the space and make it a little bit more presentable rather than just dirt and weeds on the ground. We were able to spread a good amount, about 60 cubic yards of mulch on the site, and that make the site a little bit more appealing. And that's what I wanted to show you of the event. Here, I'm gonna open and share my screen so that you can see very quickly and briefly, obviously, the images that I wanna show you. I need this. There we go. I'm gonna share my screen, and yeah, here it is. So I'm gonna open this quick see of I'm gonna browse to those. This is part of the activities that took place as of Thursday or Wednesday. I can't remember exactly that I spoke with the organizer. There had been about 3,000 people coming into the event without counting Friday and Saturday. So as you can tell by the numbers, it was a very successful event. Some of these vendors ran out of food midday in some of the days that they were actively, there. So it was a very nice first test, so to speak, of activating the space. We have a couple of other organizations right now seeking access to this space. And basically what we're doing is, as I mentioned before, open it for presentations, exhibitions, readings, poems, anything that has the potential to bring the community together and talk and meet each other and have a good time, so to speak. There we go. Now I'm going back. So that's what we are at this point. Baba, is there anything that I missed?
I think you did a very good job, but because of time, and we want to respect Bill's time, I think you nailed it, Eduardo. We want this project to be truly a representation of what the community feels proud of, just like the global market. We want that. That's why we want input, looking at from a security point of view. How does this building really serve the security? What about the green aspect of the building? So talking to the people, each of the groups that are, controlling those or that have the expertise that we are engaging them. The youth, what about the youth? What can we do? How will this building the project serve the youth? So we could go on, but I think you nailed it by just saying that we want it to be truly representing a true community project as NDC has been doing. And I probably will stop here because, yeah.
Any questions?
I also put our emails in the chat in case you have any ideas that's something we should be thinking about or you'd like to see yourself. Please send us an email because that's what we're trying to do, to engage different folks. And you guys with the expertise that you have, you kind of, send us an email saying, keep that in mind, when you're planning, when you get deeper down. Thank you. And thank you so much for having us here tonight. We really appreciate it. It's good to see everybody. Karen, it's going to be hard for me to call you Karen. Where I come from with my respect, it's going to be hard. So please, if I call you representative, please bear that in mind.
Sure. Okay. Great to see you. This is exciting. I had a chance to go to the site a couple months or so ago, and it was a lot of activity, and it was very positive, and people claiming the ground in a good way.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
For our Green Zone members, I also wanted to share that I did share with Eduardo, Baba, and Bill the Green Zone's development criteria. So they have seen that as input into their process. And one question I have for you all is when do you see this larger scale engagement starting up? And is there a way that anyone on the call now can kind of sign up to be informed when that gets going?
well, that's part of the planning that we're doing right now in creating a master sort of a group of people and organizations that we want to reach out to, that we want to bring into the process, that we want to get them engaged. And, you know, it's kind of a funny because we were talking about this McKnight parallel community engagement process, and I was showing to them all the stakeholders that we want to reach out to. And it's unbelievable the number of organizations and people that we want to spread this out and bring them into the process of the redevelopment of this site. So I would suspect that we already started sort of the community engagement, but we're going to go growing that engagement and intensify it as, you know, in the next couple of months for sure, because we don't want to have the site too much sitting there for too long.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Is that, Eduardo, is that list available to share? That?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, and actually, let me see if I can show it to you just briefly. Let's see. I'll see it here right away. Let me see if I can.
What are you looking for, Eduardo?
My slide with organizations and names that
So yeah,
that
what he's looking for, we have a list of almost 20 organizations that we have and we are going to engage. And as you were saying, like starting in September, so you know we will start reaching out with you to you all, you know, starting September. We're going to increase that. We've already started at some level, but increasing that in September. And should we reach out to every member on this team, or should we select for the engagement part to get feedback? Do you want us to reach out to all of you as a group, or could it be maybe one or?
I would generally, and others can correct me, but I'd say send it to everyone because individuals may want to engage on their own time outside of their affiliation with Green Zones, and then it saves me sending out an email to all of them anyway.
Okay. So what we will do, we let us put something together and we'll give you an idea as to what our engagement is, how it's going to roll out for the next couple of months. So we will tell you how we're going to engage all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. If there's no more questions, we really appreciate it. And I'm going to stay for Bill's presentation too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Bill, tag you.
All right. Tag, I'm it. Hi, everyone. It's good to see some familiar faces here. My name is Bill Graves, and I'm here with Joanna Hicks. I am the president of my family's foundation, the Graves Foundation. We, for the last 4 years, have had a physical presence in this Southside neighborhood across the hall from the Midtown Global Market. And for the last year and a half, we have been the owners of the lot just to the west of the lot that Baba and Eduardo have been presenting on. The lot that was the former home to Robert Schu's site. And I'll just share a little bit about kind of how that happened, that we came to own the lot, what we have done up to this point, and kind of where we're going next. With all that in mind, I just want to make clear that we are not, unlike NDC, our Grace Foundation is not a community developer. Our intent was to buy and hold the land, and we have engaged with Joanna Hicks from Element specifically to provide pre-development technical support, and have really appreciated the technical expertise that Joanna has brought to the project. So I thought in case there were specific development or pre-development questions that Joanna could be potentially helpful. About a year and a half ago, I had heard from a number of folks in community some concern about the potential development that could be taking place on the former Robert Shoes lot. Some folks in community had concern about potential gentrification, and so I took the opportunity to reach out to the developer and see if there was a way that we could potentially add some of our experience. Our foundation has supported a affordable housing development in the Lowry Hill neighborhood. Maybe that could be helpful in, and maybe making some connections to community organizations to give maybe some ideas to this developer. The developer ultimately chose not to move forward with their purchase agreement, and with the support of a number of leaders in the community, including, I believe, Baba, who had written a letter of support for us, we ended up putting in a bid for the property and purchasing it. That all happened before COVID and before the murder of George Floyd. So our community engagement plan did shift a bit, but prior to COVID and prior to the murder of George Floyd, we had engaged with an artist who lived in the area, and the intent was that artist would be activating the lot with the purpose of inviting community in to envision what the lot could be in the future. The results of those engagements were an idea around bringing and kind of celebrating the Latina cultural heritage of the area, and bringing it in as a cultural space. So we took that feedback and convened a advisory council of Latino and Latina folks that have direct connection either as artists, as community members or leaders, or organizations that have some connection to cultural work, and invited them to envision ideas. Joanna came in at that time as well and was kind of listening to the ideas that this advisory council had provided or was providing, and tried to put some form to it. We are now, I think, 4 meetings in as an advisory council. We've brought in architects to kind of get in a sense, and we have had some initial conversations around operators, potential folks that could actually be in the space leasing it, but nothing has, there's nothing permanent for me to report so far. Conversations are ongoing. So it's our foundation's hope that by the end of this year that we will have other partners to continue to carry this community project forward. And ultimately, it's our hope that we can hand off this project to either a community development organization to own and build the building, or to a local developer who believes and is connected to the mission in some way. Those are our aspirations. Obviously, that's outside of the control of our organization in and of ourselves. In the meantime, we have had events also on our lot, both last year and this year. As you can see, I think there's a Somali prayer tent that's currently was created by Somali artisans. Our intent, I think, in the next couple, there have been truth and reconciliation meetings that have been happening relatively regularly on Tuesday and Thursday nights, primarily through the month of July. There have been arts groups that have held events on the space, and I think the hope is that the Dia de los Muertos festival may be able to use the space in the last week of October. So all the events that we have and kind of requests, if there are any requests to use the space, you can find that on our website, www.jdgravesfoundation.org, and I can add that to the chat as well on our convenience page. So that's what we're doing. I'd be happy to take any kind of questions or comments.
Sorry, I had to turn my camera off due to internet issues, but I'm wondering of the, any renderings the architects would have, or at any point, will you be sharing out some of what's coming to the advisory committee? Is that already on your website?
So we are not sharing right now those preliminary drawings because we don't want, until a developer is signed on, ultimately it's going to be the developer's kind of discretion how they take those early drawings. Our intent is to have a vision and potentially a pathway to actually developing that vision that would entice the developer to follow that pathway. But ultimately, I think it's too preliminary to share any of the kind of early drawings. I think some things that the advisory council has been talking about that I feel comfortable sharing our kind of conversations about, is this a housing development project or is this more commercial street level? Right now, the advisory council is seeing the project, and given the kind of square footage of the lot and vision for it as making more sense as a standalone, maybe two story, 1.5 story building rather than multi-story housing with the commercial activation in the main floor. Again, that this is what we'd like to hand off to a developer, but ultimately it will be the developer's discretion. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If there is any summary that's issued at any point, whether it includes a variety of images or even just text description of what the vision is, that'd be great to share with the Southside Green Zone. Yeah,
absolutely. We'd be happy to do that, and be happy to keep the Southside Green Zone up to date as if we do are able to find a developer, and maybe that developer then could share how their vision is aligning with our hopes and dreams for the site. So I think one thing that I know the Southside Green Zone is very interested in community involvement in community development. I think that's like what we wanted to share our model for community advisory council informed design and visioning, as we felt like that might be a point of alignment between your work and what's happening on our property. And I did share in the chat the kind of our events convening page in case anyone's curious about what has happened and what is still planning this summer and fall.
Go ahead, Karen.
I have a question. I've recently become aware, because of work I've been doing with the Roof Depot project, Urban Farm project, that there's a process called RIA, Racial Equity Impact Analysis, that's, I think, required now in the city of Minneapolis for any development. And I'm just wondering, I probably should have asked this earlier too, and to see, just how you're approaching that. Are you taking that on?
So my understanding of that process, that's the kind of something that formally any city project, and I should mention in my spare time, I'm on City of Minneapolis's, what's it, CLIC, what does it stand for? The Long Range Investments.
Capital Long Range Improvement Committee.
Thank you. So I have seen, the reports attached there. I think that I would hope if we were scored against the city that our process and kind of the vision for our project would score well, given kind of the strong community input and community purpose of the project.
Yeah, and Karen, if you have more questions about what the racial equity impact analysis includes, or what policy decisions that the city is sort of self-required to do, I'm happy to answer those questions. It's mostly any policy decision, any major development where funding would be going out, things like that. So, but it was just implemented within the last couple of years, so it's pretty new.
Right. It's not just for city-owned development, is it?
It is. It's for city
Alright.
decisions specifically. So it's if the city were to adopt a policy or ordinance at the city council level, they would have to do a racial equity impact analysis. We're in the process of doing one right now for the staff
know.
direction. Yeah, so as you know, we're doing one right now
Yeah.
on the staff direction
Yeah.
to halt the roof depot activities. And so decisions like that, but it would be decisions that city council makes. They also recommend it for any policy recommendations that boards and commissions like the Southside Green Zone put forward to city council. So if that's something that we want to dive deeper into as a committee, we can definitely do that. And I think it would be a good exercise to see what information is gathered, how it's shared, and what kinds of decisions we would use it for.
Just one other clarification. Does it apply to development if it receives city funds, even if it's not owned by the city? I'm assuming all of these developments will need to have public funding from various sources, state, city, county. And can you tell me, does that apply to funding, to a project if it's funded by the city?
Yeah, so the way that it would work is it would apply to the city council's decision on the issuance of that funding. So usually that would be brought forward as a package, let's say for like affordable housing funding that goes out every year. My understanding is that the housing staff would have to include a racial equity impact analysis in their presentation to council, as they say, when they say like, these are the funding amounts we want to give to X, Y, and Z projects. And this is the racial equity impact we think that will have. That's my understanding of how that would work. It's not the individual developers or proposers that would be filling it out.
Okay, thanks.
Good.
Well, thank you for giving us the time to present on what's happening on Chicago and Lake. And yeah, I appreciate the work that you do, making sure that anything that's happening from a development perspective, whether it's city owned or city funded, follows a strong, equitable, and environmentally conscious direction. Yeah. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for spending your evening with us.
It was very nice to see most of you again.
Thank you
very much. Enjoy the rest of your meeting, and see you guys soon.
Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, well, that leaves the 5 of us. I was hoping that moving to Wednesday evening was going to mean we would have better attendance. Maybe it's just because it's, the week right before Labor Day and kids are going back to school. But based on our attendance tonight, I wanted to see, do we want to continue having conversation? I can provide some updates on some activities at the city. I've sent emails out about. Obviously, we don't have quorum to do elections, so we'll bump that again to next month. How are people feeling? I know Samara's under the weather, but Megan, Karen, Blake, are you interested in any updates? Do you feel like you're informed on what's going on?
I'm 100% flexible.
Yes.
Same.
Wow.
My time is blocked out. I'd like to, I could be updated for sure.
That could be updated too. I would like to talk a little bit more about the RIA issue at some point, Kelly. So,
Okay. Yeah, so I just sent out an email this afternoon about the community air monitoring project. So I was in a meeting with staff about it earlier today, and I think we're now starting to feel comfortable with a timeline, at least for the next couple months. And based on that, want to start getting community members involved, because for you all in the green zones and anyone else who's interested, we want community members to really be driving the vision and goals for this project. The city and MPCA definitely have goals that they also want to achieve, but we want to make sure that the primary driver of the project is what the Green Zone members and other community members are interested in, because that's really kind of where the impetus for this is coming from. So I saw Blake, thank you for also indicating you're interested. We'll again be having that first meeting in September, and I'll be sending out some information to review before that. So that's kind of update number one. I'm really excited about it. The fact that the city's putting money forward to purchase monitors, that they want the sort of, for lack of a better word, citizen science approach to this, where community members are actually collecting the data, collecting sort of live observations of when the data is showing a spike, what's happening in the community, and being able to provide more of a story to that than what the regulatory monitors do. And that we want the community members to also be the ones who are educating the city and the state on this as well, and their fellow colleagues. So that's going to be part of the conversation is, what does that education or sharing out look like of the data that is collected, of the stories that are collected? How does that happen? So that is update number one. The other, yep, go ahead.
I have a question. So what level of particulate are these monitors able to pick up?
That's part of the question. We based on the goals that you all have, will determine what types of sensors that the city purchases. We've been on a call with actually the EPA, who's going to be issuing funds that will likely be applying for in partnership with MPCA. And they had a listening session, and we're asking, what concerns do people have? What would they be interested in collecting data on? And folks have mentioned ultrafine particulates. Karen, I immediately thought of you. A lot of interest in volatile organic compounds and other air toxins. And so Jenny Lansing in the health department at the city has actually reached out to a professor at Minnesota State Mankato, who does research on ultrafine particulates, and is already engaging with him. So hopefully he will be interested in lending his technical support and guidance on that, if that's an area of interest in terms of, what types of, maybe he knows what types of monitors to purchase and what the data might show, or any health implications of the data. So yeah, that's why we want to have conversations with you all and other interested community members first, because we don't want to design a project that's not going to provide the information you're looking for.
Is there a dollar limit? I mean, is there a budget limit on this? I know those monitors, at least I've heard, sometimes they're expensive, so. Yeah.
The city is putting forward $100,000 that we can spend by the end of this year. So we want to purchase the monitors by the end of this year. The amount of time that we do the data collection is really dependent on how long community members are interested in collecting the data. And then if we are successful in getting some EPA funding, then we would add that to the project. So at least $100,000 this year. And again, the number of monitors or sensors that we purchase will depend on what we're looking to capture data for. So if we need a slightly more expensive sensor or monitor to get the data we want, we'll do that. It just means that we'll have fewer sensors or monitors in the field, at least to start with.
Thank you.
Do we have any information on what types of monitors are available, like what's out there?
Yeah, Jenny Lansing in the health department has been doing research on that. The city and the state have been using a couple different sort of lower cost monitors in some of these similar projects for the last, gosh, even almost 10 years. But there are some that are more mobile, that where the city has done a bicycle air monitoring project a few years ago, where they had sensors that you could just attach using like a carabiner or a zip tie to your backpack and collect data as you're biking around the city, to everything up to purple air monitors, which are a little bit higher tech. The MPCA over the last couple of years has installed a number of those around the Twin Cities to get more granular geographic data on air pollution beyond the few regulatory air monitors that are out there. And so those are, I mean, Megan, I don't know if you know more about the cost of those, but I think those are more like in the thousands of dollars, whereas no?
You're talking about Purple Air?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are like $250 to $300.
Oh,
But
okay.
then sometimes, I mean, installing them, they have to be hardwired and then have to have Wi-Fi. So, like, when I know one of our grants was to Little Earth to install
Yep.
some. And so I think most of the money there, I think, was to get them hardwired in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were actually, for that, the monitor was being provided for free from the state, but they needed to pay the electrician.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but then the ones that were used for the LCCMR grant are called an AQ mesh, and that picked up on most criteria pollutants. Those were in the $10,000. Those were $10,000.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Sure.
Again, there's been multiple projects and a variety of monitors, so I get confused on which one was used for what project.
I hear you.
So yeah, anywhere between like $100 and $10,000.
And then there's even more. Like there's one I heard about recently that would speciate out VOCs so that you can, like, you know, there's like the AQ mesh will get total VOCs, but then you don't know what's all in there. And so, but then that one I guess is like $50,000 to $75,000 is the one that will we'll do the speciation of what VOCs are in there. So yeah, there's huge gamut.
Gotcha. So the first ones only monitor specific like particles. They don't actually determine what they are.
Right.
Okay.
Right, fine particles, correct, yeah. PM, it's fine particles 2.5 microns and smaller.
Okay.
But those are also the ones, I mean, now there's a lot of air toxics and things that can cause a lot of health. PM 2.5 we know a lot about, that it can get it right into your bloodstream, and that's where it causes a lot of health impacts around not only like asthma, but also heart, cardiovascular issues and stroke. So it's good to know where that is as well. And that's, I'm super interested in this. I feel really conflicted about like where I might follow along for my work, but I'll also probably follow along like tertiarily for Southside Green Zones. But yeah, so I'm very interested, but I feel a little conflicted in that one.
I think we should bring our whole selves to work and home every day. So you're welcome to show up. I know, right? To show up however you are.
I agree.
Any other questions on the air monitoring? We'll probably have quite a bit of time dedicated to the October 5th joint green zone meeting on this as well. So even if you don't have the capacity to take on an extra meeting before then, we'll be having updates and opportunities to provide input at that meeting. Like, we won't have purchased the monitors before then. Cool. So the other update I wanted to provide is next Thursday afternoon, we are giving a presentation to City Council, their Policy and Government Oversight Committee, on the Green Zone's work plans. This has been a year and a half in the making, and we're finally getting time. We're getting a full 30 minutes, which is actually a lot for a City Council presentation. And COSAR is going to be helping out with the presentation. And we also have two Northside Green Zone members, Roxanne O'Brien and Leslie Jackson, who are also going to be helping deliver the presentation. So I'm really excited. If you can't tune in on Thursday the 9th at 1:30, it will be recorded, and I will send the recording out afterwards for everyone to watch. We're not asking for a specific City Council action as part of this presentation. It will be accepted as what they call a receive and file. So they will graciously receive the presentation and then file it on the public record. But in the end of the presentation, we do essentially make an ask to the city for support, resources, and accountability. So Leslie will be helping to deliver that part of the presentation. But yeah, the presentation will generally go over what some examples of what's in the work plans. COSAR is going to talk about the experience of working with Shalini and Alejandra on the development of the work plan for Southside. We'll talk about the EJ pop-up funds and all of and kind of like, we have a slide that highlights the 13 projects that were funded on Southside and the handful of projects funded on the North Side, and kind of demonstrating how far even just a small amount of funding can go to advancing community work on environmental justice and supporting the green zones. And then we'll talk about everything that we did in 2020 despite COVID and the murder of George Floyd and the uprisings, which included bringing an air pollution and COVID presentation to City Council, creating the development criteria, and numerous other things, taking on the leadership of these committees after our funding ran out for facilitators, a whole bunch of stuff. So really highlighting how active both green zones have been in the last year. And then we'll wrap up sort of with what's the vision going forward. We want to be working on these community air monitoring projects. Hi, puppy. I love that tongue. The community air monitoring projects. I have another update on funding for this year. We'll be potentially organizing a Green Zone Summit, a variety of things coming forward, but some bigger goals of, envisioning in 2022, what is the future of the green zones? Do we want to continue to exist as an advisory body to the City Council? Is there a better structure that would be more effective for this work? Or do we, kind of coming up with a variety of different possibilities and weighing the pros and cons for all of those. And maybe we decide we do still want to be a board and commission, but we at least know what that looks like, what we've kind of accepted for ourselves compared to other options. So that's the presentation. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Who's the chair of that committee?
The chair is Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins.
Got it.
And it has all 13 council members, which is the nice thing about also presenting to that committee is you don't just present to half of them. Yeah, Karen?
I just have a request. Both the Southside Green Zone and the Northside Green Zone has put forward and actually that recently engaged with that community. I'm thinking of, what I want to say is, please don't go soft on the recommendations that we had about enforcing the environmental assessment worksheet and the environmental justice work around the Rift Depot and around Smith Foundry and bituminous roadways zoning changes. Please don't underplay that. I mean, we've had both victory and loss in that committee, you know, and Kelly's involved right now in this racial equity impact analysis, and I want to talk with you a little bit more about that, maybe together as a green zone tonight. But I just urge you, please, just be as strong as those statements are. Make sure that those statements are carried forward, you know. So I know you probably will, but I just really want to be able to hear that. I'm going to listen into the committee, and you know, it's been so hard to be dealing with environmental injustice in our city council right now. I'm flabbergasted at some of what's come down, you know, some victory and some loss. I mean, they voted to support this highly flawed environmental assessment worksheet. I think it was people weren't paying attention, or they were, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking. And I kind of wonder, like, okay, are they taking seriously what the Southside Green Zone and Northside Green Zone are giving them, you know? And so that work plan has a lot of really good stuff in it. You know, those are just a couple of points that are in it, but I hope that they receive some attention. Those of you who are presenting, please.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons that it is so critical that COSAR, Roxanne, and Leslie are there to co-present, because I think they will get that message across much more effectively than any staff can. The section, so I'm not going to go through every single recommendation in the work plans, because there's 70 in the Southside Green Zone and 80 in the Northside Green Zone work plans. We'd be there all day. So the ones that I picked out were ones that are very much in alignment with like the development criteria recommendations and some of those policy changes. So around land use, air, and soil, I pulled out the recommendation in Southside Green Zone to adopt a municipal version of the Phillips cumulative levels and effects legislation. I actually have some narrative for myself to read, that the reason that we're focusing on the land and the air and soil is because environmental injustice experienced by our communities today is based on land use planning and policies of the past, that building the national highway system through Black and brown communities, redlining and racial covenants, forcing Black and brown residents to live in limited geographic areas, frequently adjacent to freeways or industry, how closely we've even allowed through zoning, housing, and industry to be near each other. All of those were decisions that the city made, and that race or justice neutral decision making really just perpetuates the status quo. And so the Green Zone is offering intentional data and community informed policy and land use recommendations to address those past harms.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions on the presentation?
Thank you for doing it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's a good group.
Yeah. And I think it'll just be a really good reminder for council members that this work is happening. I think it's just we're not public enough with everything. And we've kind of been forced out of the focus over the last year and a half because of COVID and both the health pandemic of it and the economic crisis resulting from it, and all of that. The city's attention has gotten very focused on those issues, even though they're very much intertwined with the green zones. This feels like something that, like, oh, we do during our blue sky days. So we'll remind them that we're still here doing the work. The next update I have is we are going to have some more EJ pop-up funds. My supervisor is pulling $55,000 out of our budget to release for Green Zones projects this fall. I'm working with finance right now to get the call for proposals ready to go out. They'll be very similar to last time. It'll be between $500 and $5,000 per project. This will be for both Northside and Southside. And we're hoping to coincide it also with the call for proposals that Minneapolis Foundation and McKnight will be putting out for the Climate Action Racial Equity Fund. In those projects, the funding goes all the way up to $50,000. So it kind of provides a tiering of like, if you want the small scale funds, like specifically and exclusively for Green Zones projects, go through the city. If you want larger and a little bit more flexible, it doesn't have to be in the Green Zones, even though there's preference for it, they can go for the Climate Action Racial Equity Fund. So I am looking for a couple folks to be proposal reviewers for both the city and the foundation proposals. And likely that will be happening in October. So I'm not sure if folks know their October schedules at this point or know if they have any interest in that. Obviously, I'll be sending that message out to our full Green Zone contingency, not just the 4 of you. But since you're on the call and you get all the information right now, I don't know if anybody either has questions about that or is interested in reviewing.
Are there already set reviewing times? Also, hi, everybody.
Thanks, Mara. So I think not in terms of, we don't have like a time set where we're going to meet to do the review, but the timeline would be like the 2nd to 4th week of October. So there'll probably be like a couple weeks to review and a meeting to get the proposals reviewed by the end of October so that we can notify and start projects at the beginning of November.
Cool. Yeah, I helped with part of that process the last time, and I'd be interested in doing that again.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Samara. Cool. Well, let me know if you have any questions. I'm working with our Vista, AmeriCorps Vista, Julia. She's a Promise Zone Vista, so she does most of her work on the north side, which is why you guys haven't got to see her as much. But she's been at our joint meetings, and because this does affect north side, she's helping me out with this as a project. So she is putting together like a flyer, announcements that we can put out, and hopefully we'll be sending that out next week for you to share widely. And then the last update I have is Green Zone Summit planning. So this was an idea that came from a joint Green Zone meeting, I think 2 meetings ago. This idea came from the ideas on how to better engage more people in understanding that the Green Zones work is happening, and also to connect Green Zones with other environmental justice activities that are happening across Minneapolis and maybe even into St. Paul and the greater Twin Cities area. So we have an initial planning conversation on that actually tomorrow between 10 a.m. and noon. Basically are just trying to get a sense of like what would be the goal of having that gathering, who would we want to invite, what will be our timing. I think at one point we were hoping, before the Delta variant went far and wide, that we could actually have an in-person gathering in late summer or fall. Now I think we're pretty much thinking exclusively online. And so how do we make that a really engaging environment? Do we have it like shorter periods for like 2 to 3 days, or do we try to cram some conversations into a 3-hour period? There's a variety of pros and cons to any of those methods, but if you have suggestions on like really good facilitators, or if you've been in some really good online meetings and have suggestions on how to do community building activities or how to do generative conversations, We'd love any or all of those ideas. One other thought is that maybe this could be a launch for the climate action plan update for the city. And so maybe it could be a convening around, what are the environmental justice activities happening, or what are our goals collectively around environmental justice and climate justice, and have that drive some of the initial conversations of what does an update to our climate action plan look like if we center that work rather than have it as an add-on or an after the fact. So lots of ideas, nothing concrete at this point. And so a lot of flexibility for ideas. And, we don't have to have it either if it doesn't make sense. We're still trying to figure out, like, is there a there? There's interest in coming together. Does it make sense to do that now? How do we make it effective? What is our purpose?
Jay-Z Hatch. Jack doesn't see that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Karen.
When is that meeting tomorrow, you said?
It's from 10 a.m. to noon.
It's virtual?
Yeah. You want me to send it to you?
Yeah, I would be interested in coming for a portion of that. I couldn't come to the whole thing, but I feel like I must participate in trying to I'm trying to continue to be hopeful that our city can be accountable. And so it seemed like a summit, maybe that would be one way to help it happen. I don't know. Anyway, I would like to come for a little while.
Great. I will send you the invitation.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, Kelly, did you say when you're targeting this for? I apologize if you did.
The earliest would be this winter.
Okay.
So most likely into 2022. I'd be surprised if we got everything put together for this year.
Fabulous.
And I think
not that, but yeah, good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I understand what you meant. And part of this conversation, I remember the original genesis of the idea, Michael Chaney on the Northside Green Zone had mentioned an interest in bringing both Northside and Southside Green Zone together, along with the Community Environmental Advisory Commission, with the Minneapolis Food Council. There's all these variety of bodies that are advising the city of Minneapolis on similar issues, and the power in numbers by coming together and kind of aligning our values and goals and power, or people power and interest. So that's kind of the initial impetus. And then I've had a few conversations with Marianne Abdenur at Hope Community and Cy Yang at Center for Earth, Energy, and Democracy about, and they're very excited about the idea as well, and thought about, well, maybe we also bring in some community leaders or nonprofit partners who could help support or doing similar work, and what that looks like.
Got it. That is this. Okay, cool. I didn't realize that that's what. Fabulous. Awesome. Very exciting.
And if you have a better way to describe it or talk about it, then I'm open to that as well.
I love it. I love it. A summit. It makes sense. It was just, yeah, hearing about it in initial days is different than, yeah, but I love it. That sounds awesome. Do you know, will it kind of overlap or be parallel or anything to the Community Connections Conference? Or heck, who knows if that'll even be happening? But
right.
I was like, that is February, early February or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Maybe we do, loop in with neighborhood and community relations and see what their thoughts are, if they're going to try to do a virtual thing for that and tap into that. I know that's mostly for neighborhoods, and we have struggled both on the north side and south side to really engage with the neighborhood associations for the green zones and other work. So we could maybe kind of take advantage of similar timing, see if we could, yeah, it's good thought.
Or co-opt it. I mean, I'm all no. Hey, what?
Hey, if it brings more people to engage with each other, I don't think NCR would care.
Okay.
I'm also wondering if it might, obviously there's a lot of conversations to have, but I'm wondering if it might make sense to wait until next summer and maybe like, you know, it could be tabling outside where things felt safer and more distanced. But it's hard to predict with COVID, so yeah.
Yeah, winter's also, I don't know, winter, I always think of it as like, it can be really generative in terms of like time to really stew in things, I guess. So yeah, I could see it, like some of it maybe even being in the winter where we have, you know, kind of more conversations, but then maybe something comes to fruition from that in the summer or something. So I love it. I love all of it. It sounds great.
Awesome. So those are the updates that I have. And I was meeting with Julia or Vista earlier today, and I was just thinking, I think this is the most active the green zones have been in terms of like concrete projects and things going forward, between the presentation, funding, air monitoring project, possible summit. So I'm excited. I'm also really busy, so keeps me going. But I just want to show my appreciation for you and all of your work and continuing to show up to these meetings and having faith in this effort and not taking no or silence for an answer from anybody. You know, it may be a slow roll, but I do feel that we are building momentum in this work, and yeah, it's exciting to be working on these projects. Is there anything else that you four had you wanted to talk about? Otherwise, we could end extraordinarily early. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Well, I'm going back to the RIA, the racial equity impact analysis, and maybe this is a conversation that I should have with you separately, but I appreciate, I just want to say to this group anyway, I appreciate that you're involved in this because, and this is related to the whole Rift Depot project, because you've been such a great, you've really helped support what this council has tried to do in terms of raising issues of environmental injustice, and you've been, you've done a really important and good job doing that, and I'm just thinking I'd like to send you some stuff for that document.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also was thinking that I would like to contact Shalini, and I remember the very first meeting she had with us, they did a timeline where they talked about the development of environmental justice. And I think that timeline needs to be brought to the attention of our city council and the staff who are looking at this RIA, because again, I'm just trying to be hopeful that people can have their hearts and minds open who don't seem to have that going on so much, in terms of how environmental justice and injustice has evolved, and that we have as a city a real chance to take it a step forward or not. And it's odd to be in a situation where I feel like, yeah, we took one step forward and we took another step backward, and I just like, oh my goodness, how do we, maybe this RIA is a way to, and those of you who may not know, I'm referring to recent votes of the city council that had to do with the whole depot issue. But I think this RIA might be a door that opens, that allows us to really talk about the things that need to be understood, and so anyway, I was thinking to try to get a hold of Shalini, and I think I have a number. I'm not sure it's still the right number, but I just thinking that whole historical timeline is eye-opening, I think, to some degree. What do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, I can probably find it in my notes. So let me see if I can, and then like Steve has been sending Kim and me documents as well.
Okay.
So if there's anything that you want us to look at to include, just go ahead and email that to me.
Okay, well, let me just say one thing is the health impact assessment that was done. And that
Yep.
really would not have come to light if it hadn't been for the Southside Green Zone bringing it up and, us understanding like what buttons we needed to push. And you were, again, very, very helpful in helping us get that revealed, and the documentation, the scientific documentation that's in that HIA in the 104-page document is really valuable. I think there's a 13-page summary that I know the city council, I've sent it to all of them, and I don't know if they ever, how many people actually looked at it. 13 pages is probably the most I could expect from them, but what's in that longer document is a lot of documentation that should be in the RIA. It shows the impact of race and income on environmental injustice. So it's kind of anyway. So that is one thing, and I'm just thinking some of the people that Shalini talked about going, and that it could be very helpful as resources maybe to the city council to make this, I don't know, have an impact. That's kind of what I'm thinking, have the kind of impact it needs to have. So.
Yeah. There was an initial staff meeting on it that my supervisor Kim pulled together on Monday afternoon, and I was reassured that the staff from other departments we're all kind of on the same page that we want this to be a well done, thorough document and not something that needs to be rushed forward. So we are sort of shooting for September 22nd, but if it takes longer than that, it takes longer than that. So if there's information that beyond the HIA, which I have, anything beyond that you want to send me, go ahead and do that.
Okay, so, the Metro Council did a whole analysis too. I don't know if you have that.
On what
The
specifically?
Metropolitan Council, on racial disparities in terms of issues with environment. I just, when we were talking about the citizen monitoring, it's so clear that this group understands something about air pollution, very basically how it affects the human body and causes, in particularly in communities like East Phillips, this disparate, incredible health problems. But I think it's not real to some of our decision makers yet, and I'm not sure. I think that's what the RIA opens up, the possibility for them seeing more reality. And so I don't know. I'll just stop there. I just want to thank you again for having your hands in that, and I hope that Kim maybe works with us on this too. It sounds like you said he will, so that's great. So I just want to thank you and just encourage others to know this is a tool now that separate from an environmental assessment worksheet or impact. It's another format, I guess you'd say, or tool that can be used to look at these issues of environmental injustice. So
yeah,
I didn't know about it.
And like many tools, it can also be very biased to the person who's filling it out. So, I imagine even if there had been a racial equity impact analysis done on the Roof Depot project or the city's expansion, 3 years ago, they likely would have advocated for the positive elements of it that they continue to talk about, which is job creation, I'm not sure what jobs they're creating because the jobs already exist, but I understand that there will be a lot of retirements and new people. So having a training center in the community, I do think was a positive add-on, which they added on after the community was very upset about them doing this project. So it was not there from the beginning. But anyway, so they would likely talk about that as a positive impact on racial equity, and that, you know, having clean water for the citizens of Minneapolis is a positive impact on racial equity. And these are things that staff are going to ask us to put in there. And that's not incorrect. Like, those are positive things for community members. Not everyone has clean access to clean water. And so maintaining the city system for that is important. But we also have to balance that with the real impacts of having that location in an environmental justice community and the truck traffic and all of the things that go with that. So Kim and I are going to do our very best to make sure that it is a balanced analysis, but we don't get final say. We are going to do our best to drive the conversation, to include all of the data. But I don't want you to have the expectation that this is going to be the silver bullet.
Who does have the final say?
I mean, ultimately it's city council. They say whether it's complete or not, similar to like an EAW. But right now it is a collaborative staff effort. So Kim and I are leading it, but you know, CPED, Public Works, Property Services are all involved.
How about the health department?
I don't think we have anyone from the health department right now.
Oh, please. I mean, the racial disparities are health issues, you know? I mean, can we please get that in there? I mean, whoever the folks would be that can do that. I mean,
yeah, I can talk to Kim tomorrow. I have a check-in with him in the afternoon.
yeah. I mean, you said it earlier, you know, we're talking about asthma and cardiovascular disease and all of these things that are health related.
And we'll include, I mean, to the extent that we have that information, we will include it. So you talked about the health impact assessment, you know, that has a lot of that data in there. Some of the notes that I have for myself is to, you know, pull the traffic data that was included in a study from a few years ago that Steve sent off to me.
Oh, we have more updated information than that. Maybe
Okay.
Steve sent it. Okay. All right. If you got from Steve, that's good.
Yeah, he sent me, it was a study from 2014, a letter to city council members that you'd put together in the spring. We have, you know, all the summary of the community engagement sessions that Public Works and Property Services hosted is still all on their website. And I plan to go through that and pull out summary of community feedback. If you, Karen, do you know how many signatures HEPNY collected or has collected and submitted over the last few years?
Thousands. I mean, I can get that information. I know just the people who wrote in on the EAW was over 1,000. You might know that number better than I know that the city clerk said they've never ever had that many people respond to EAW before. It's unprecedented. But I can ask. I can think of who. I'll ask Brad Pass. He's got a lot. He's the keeper of a lot of the archives and a lot of the documents, and maybe he can answer that question or send you numbers. And
I think that would be important to include as well.
Really? Okay. I thought so originally, and that's why the EAW was defeated in a committee, you know, originally, because there was like so many people, over 1,000 people responding, and then just, you know, a week or so ago, it just flew through. I think because I'm kind of flabbergasted about it. I think it was, I don't understand. I've listened to the testimony of the folks who were saying why they voted for it, and I just still can't understand. You know, it doesn't compute with what they voted on previously. So Anyway, I know this is all being recorded, so I'll just stop right there and say to be continued. Yeah, thank you though for listening and taking time for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Blake, Samara, Megan?
I'm good with wrapping up early. Yeah.
I'm
My-
good.
Starting to be annoying, so.
How old is your
I
puppy?
cannot get over that tongue.
Does it ever go back in his mouth?
Every once in a while, he can get it in for a minute or two, but he's missing most of his teeth, so he can't really hold it in. He's 13.
Oh,
He's an old man. His name is Toby.
Oh, he's old. Oh,
Um,
wait.
oh.
Neat. Good for you. Good for Toby.
All right. Well, everyone have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
See you all soon.
Okay.
You too.
Good night.